Hi everyone, welcome. I'm out here in my garden, and as many of you probably have, I also have myself a composting container out here in my yard. I refer to this trash pail as my composting barrel, and right next to it is what we affectionately refer to as my outdoor worm bag. It's really just a grow bag, and the reason it sits so high up inside that trash pail is because underneath it I've got a pot keeping it up high. And it's actually two grow bags, one within the other, with a plastic liner in between it to help the system hang on to its moisture content. And yeah, some of you that are regulars remember that outdoor worm bag version 5.0 from last season had this ornate piece of plywood covering it. And even though it's got a big crack down the middle, it still seems like it can be useful out here for setting up outdoor worm bag version 6. So to do that, we're going to do what we always do, which is to go into my compost barrel and recruit worms. So I've got my little green transport container. I got my gloves all set to go. The system itself has already been pre-fed with a whole bunch of stuff, and the only thing remaining now is to dive in here and grab some wormies. So yeah, this is just a couple of wisteria vines that I sort of wound up into an interesting little wreath here, so I just use it as decoration down here in the compost barrel. So enough of the chit chat, why don't we get started on this? Should be fun. Let's get started. Recently I've started trying to protect my my compost barrel from losing its moisture content by keeping this plastic cover on it. So every time I come out here to add some more material, I just cover it back up, and as you can see, the moisture that would otherwise evaporate gets caught by the plastic, recirculates, and even the stuff right here on the top surface has a good bit of moisture content to it from the moisture recirculating. And this system not only gets stuff that's like kitchen scraps and food waste, human food waste, but this is where I put my my prunings from my garden. This is where I put all the weeds that I pull. And the amazing thing about this system is that this thing can just go for years and years and years without needing to get emptied. The level of it always seems to drop. I can fill this thing right up to the top, and then within a month or two the level will have dropped. So I guess I'm kind of stalling because I'm trying to come up with a picture in my mind as to how to do this without making a big mess. I started out by sitting, but I'm starting to feel like perhaps we're better off with me standing. So I guess maybe I'll pull the material back in my own direction, and then I suppose as I encounter little pockets of material that seems to have a good bit of worm activity in it, I'll just grab it. It feels to me like in the past I've always overthought doing this, so maybe the best bet is just to jump right in instead of stalling. I guess, you know, what I think puts a little hamper on this is that I'm expecting to encounter like just a massive pile of worms that I can just get 2 or 3 handfuls and I'll be done. But traditionally, every time I've done this in the past, it's always been a fair amount of material that I bring over with the worms, since I don't really tend to encounter a mother lode, if you will, of worms. I am usually required to, you know, pick through for a little while to recruit what I think is enough worms to suit our outdoor worm bag. And well, we've been picking around here for a while and I still haven't recruited a single worm, so why don't we try to get this show on the road. I mean, it is always interesting to dig down into the system because it's just something I don't do very frequently. I've got a few videos on my channel where I've done this in the past, but this system generally doesn't end up being one of the systems that we manage and check in on regularly. But you know, you can already tell just from what we've encountered so far that even though there's all kinds of delicious foods in here for the worms, there's really no one space where there's a ton of worms. But everywhere you look, there are worms. So, you know, I think the time has come to finally just start. You know, let's start collecting handfuls of material that looks like it has at least a few worms hanging out in it. And then perhaps later I could just pick through what we've collected and pull out anything that's really kind of big and tough and remove it from what we're going to be transferring over into the outdoor worm bag and return it into here. But I also do like the idea of bringing the worms to their new home with some familiar material from their old home, so that they can just ease into their new living conditions at their own pace, whatever they're comfortable with. See, here I am just taking material that looks like it would definitely have a good many worms in it and just pushing it aside rather than grabbing it. So I think we've got to just become a little bit less picky, if that's the right way to think about it. It does seem to me like I'm just unable to shake this thing in my head that makes me feel like there must be some sort of a mother lode. I don't know if maybe we were to just go a little bit deeper. It's weird because I'm definitely encountering stuff down here which feels weird, like big, tough things. And it, you know, it definitely piques my curiosity. Like here, for example, an avocado pit, which crumbles very easily from me just grabbing it and crushing it. Yeah, you know, that's part of the hazards of recruiting worms from the compost barrel, is that there's just so much going on in here that it does tend to serve as a major distraction, preventing me from pressing forward and taking care of the matter at hand. And down lower, I'm definitely bumping into stuff that looks like it's probably been down in here for quite some time. All kinds of leafy matter and sticks and stuff that probably who knows, maybe some of the stuff that's down here, I think a lot of these larger, thicker stems are probably my tomatoes from last year, because before dropping a lot of that stuff in here, I I went ahead and tried to chop this stuff into little pieces so that there wouldn't be just huge, long strands of material in here. This, I believe, yeah, it's bamboo. And this bamboo's been in here for quite some time. And if you've ever handled bamboo, you'll know that the stuff is pretty tough. So the fact that I could just chip off chunks of it with my finger that way clearly shows that it's definitely breaking down. But it also, just based on its size, suggests to me that it still needs a little bit more time to get to the finish line. So I think that I'm really too much of a scatterbrain. Or maybe it's just my inquisitive nature. Can't seem to resist poking around and checking out what I'm playing around in. But I don't know. Do you feel the same as me, that there probably should be a mother lode in here somewhere? That was interesting. I went to crush this avocado pit, and it was just sort of filled with wormies somehow. I guess they must have burrowed into it, or they were just kind of mobbing it and working it down. And I thought that I was just kind of handling an avocado pit and would be able to crush it, and in the end I ended up with a handful of little wormies. Seems like no matter how many times I tell myself to get this show on the road, I can't seem to resist exploring. Feels like as I go a little bit deeper, I encounter some much more mature looking material, stuff that really does at this point appear like just a big pile of finished castings down here at the very bottom. Well, not at the bottom, because I'm still probably a good foot away from the bottom of the container. It does also seem to me like just this this tilling up of the material is probably beneficial for the compost barrel too. Kind of aerating and stirring stuff around, mixing things in. But I still feel like I've just not made a whole lot of progress on our recruiting mission here to get worms for our outdoor worm bag version 6.0. Alright, you know, I just keep thinking it'd be nice if we were to bump into a big pile of material full of wormies, but I am starting to feel like I've just got to kind of lower the bar here and try to get to the finish line over here in terms of just getting some worms that we can launch off our system with and be done with it. These big huge sticks, or are these also parts of tomato plants? It's hard to say. I don't know why. I always feel like I've got to sort of examine stuff and check it out and identify things, and even to a certain point judge how good I think it's coming along. There's a little bit of garlic, which will probably benefit from being opened up a little bit like that in terms of its breakdown process. The last time I really went all out on a complete refit of this system was a couple years ago. I had to do so because the system was sort of splitting and falling apart. So I emptied it. I emptied the entire container into my wheelbarrow, and then I started processing it and picking through it and trying to find some of the larger chunks that I knew would have to go back in after the repairs were complete. And then I ended up with a couple grow bags full of material that I qualified as being almost finished castings, possibly just needing a little bit more time to mature to that stage. And it almost does seem to me like the container is going to need similar repairs again, even though it's only been a couple years since I did it. These containers, I guess, are not really built to last, or maybe that's not fair to say. I think the use that this is in here is probably way more than the manufacturer imagined when they engineered the container, because there is a lot of material in here, and it's heavy, and I'm sure it's undergoing a lot of pressure from the massive amount of material in it, and its weight and the pressure that it's pushing on the sides of the container at all times. And I'm kind of thankful that it's sort of a slow process where it starts to just crack and split versus just sort of popping and breaking and spilling its contents all over my yard. But this trash pail was actually abandoned by the people that used to live next door when they had moved out already. They had sort of a big pile of old stuff that was being discarded, and one of the things that they had in their pile of stuff that was no longer needed by them in their new home was this old trash pail. So I figured I would grab it As a matter of fact, my little white shelf down in my wormery that I use for my worm bins was also in that same trash pile. It just seemed like a shame to throw it away. So I grabbed that as well, and I did a couple little repairs on it, and it has since been serving us well down in my wormery to hold all my worm bins. And it's amazing now that I actually put that point in time into context. Goes back maybe 7 years at this point, I think, almost 7 years since I started my channel and started worm farming. And that means that those neighbors have already been gone for 7 years. And then a flipper bought the property, fixed the place up, sold it. The current neighbors have probably been in there for at least 5 years now. It's interesting to think of it from that point of view. Because a lot of times you just don't take the time to think how time flies. But you know what? I really do feel like we gotta bring this process to an end. I really did kind of anticipate finding a larger cache of worms sort of jumbled together, pigging out on some of these delicious foods that have been placed into this barrel for them. And don't get me wrong, I definitely believe that this system is packed with worms. Every handful does have worms in it. The only thing that's not happening is the mobbing behavior that I sort of thought we would encounter, at least right in the middle near the top where all the fresh stuff just gets piled in all the time. But evidently I didn't really guess that one properly. I miscalculated a little bit, but I feel like, I don't know, it just feels to me like we've not really done much in terms of collecting stuff to launch our new system off with. It is true that we could always come back in here another day in the near future to recruit more. I mean, in the past I have kind of built up my population in my outdoor worm bag with multiple recruiting drives to help bring in more and more worms to build up the population of the outdoor worm bag. And I am starting to get the feeling like that might be the way to play it. But I do think that we should at least grab a few more handfuls of stuff without me being so darn picky. And I'm even thinking that picking through the material to pull out large stuff might be unnecessary, because if there is stuff that we'd like to exclude from the outdoor worm bag and return into here, I think we can do that later. Perhaps we'll wait a little while until the worms have sort of adopted their new home and the material that they're being invited to move into and occupy, and then perhaps they'll sort of abandon some of the old stuff floating out on the top level, or perhaps, I don't know, here again theorizing, don't really know, but perhaps we will be able to remove some of the things that we don't think are going to make much progress. But there's certainly no need to get into an analysis paralysis mode. We can certainly leave some of these decision points to some point in the future. And I guess maybe we can even try to stage a better turnout, you know, perhaps lay in some stuff that the worms really like out here on the top, and then come back in a short period of time to recruit more worms. Perhaps we'll find a larger quantity of worms that we could recruit, but you know, I think we're gonna leave it at that. It's so weird. Ever since I've been outside here, that one bird has been singing that same exact repeated little song over and over again, repeating the same little tune. But you know what? This is going to turn into a very long video, and let me apologize for that right now because I'm definitely drawing this out a lot more than it needs to be, I think. So I believe we're going to switch gears here now. I'm going to change the camera's position, move it over to the new worm bag, the worm bag, outdoor worm bag version 6.0, and we're just going to release what we've collected here. So let's do that now. Alrighty, so this system has been pre-fed with a really generous portion of food, so I don't think feeding it is going to be necessary for quite some time. And I'll probably pop in here once or twice just to see how things are doing. But in terms of when we come back in here to feed it next, that could be some time. So I know this is very difficult to ask because it's going to be tough to judge and estimate, but as we usually do, I'm turning to you as the viewers to please provide me with some input in terms of how many worms you think we just released into this system, because it is everyone's estimates that I take combined with my own estimate, averaged all together to come up with our worm bin population size estimates. And I'd like to do that here too. So even though it might be a little bit tricky in terms of visualizing how many worms we just released into here, just based on your observation of my recruiting effort and this right here, the quick and dirty release of the worms into their new home, please let me know how many worms you think we've released into here. So that's it for the video, everyone. Please help me welcome my newest system, outdoor worm bag version 6.0. I need another hand. Version 6.0. All right, everyone. Not much left to be done here other than cover up and clean up and put away. But that's all boring. I'm not going to keep you around for that. But before I go really quick, let me just say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.